What's up guys, Hownish here, and today I wanted to talk about Masterwork weapons and particularly my findings regarding how to get them dropped and the best ways that I found to actually see these things drop inside of endgame content. There has been a lot of conversation about Masterworks. On the most part, the community has responded pretty well, but depending on how much time you have to put into the game, Masterworks are relatively rare. So I want to do a quick video and touch on my findings as far as the best ways to earn Masterwork weapons, and I will be focusing on the raid and trials in particular. And just as a heads up, Trials is a very good source for Masterworks, and I'll break that down in a moment. There are going to be some estimations on drop rates in this video though, so it's worth me saying this is based on the sample pool of drops I've seen and collected throughout the week by running raids, trials, as well as monitoring what my teammates have had dropped and some external sources for info about trials drops in particular. If your main reason to play right now is to get them and to get as many as possible, then this video may help you out. Obviously there is an RNG factor to these drops though, so I can only base this on the sample pool I have, but since I've been able to clear a lot of raids and I've had a lot of trials drops as evidence, I figured I'd sum up my findings on these drops. Some of these numbers, I can only really estimate on, and you'd have to go into the very high hundreds, maybe even thousands of drops to improve the accuracy of the info, so just bear that in mind. Of course, Masterworks can drop from completely random sources, gunsmith, engrams from vendors, and so on, but getting Masterworks from these sources is relatively difficult. It's not impossible, you are going to see them, but for me, I turned in around about 1500 gunsmith materials and nearly 500 legendary shards to buy engrams from the Cryptarch, and I received 6 Masterwork weapons. I know that some folks have had worse luck than me on that front as well, so it is clear that the core loot game, these things aren't supposed to be thrown around and given out easily, which is fine in a way. Obviously though, if you're chasing Masterwork cores to upgrade weapons, people want better devils or nameless midnight Masterworks, any of that stuff, and the grind is going to be pretty real. Bungie did say that in trials or the raid you will have a very high chance of receiving weapons, and I can say that for both of these modes there is an obvious increase in the chance to get one dropped, but for me at least, based on some experience and research, trials seems to be the single best way to get these weapons. So when it comes to the raid or trials, I would say that you're seeing roughly a 50% chance of a Masterwork weapon dropping, and this is whenever you actually get a weapon drop. So not every time that you get a reward, but specifically when weapons drop, I'd say it's 50-50 as to whether it's going to be a Masterwork, and this is for loot from trials and the raid. I did jump on a couple of friends' accounts here to turn in some trials tokens, and as it turns out, the trials vendor is dropping a lot of Masterwork weapons. You're still going to need a fair few tokens, which I'll touch on in a moment, but right here on Howie's account, he has a trials engram, so I turn that in. By the way, none of this is for flawless, so you don't need to worry about that specifically. From the trials engram though, we get a Masterwork weapon off the bat, pretty good going. He's left with 172 tokens here. We turn in one package and don't get anything, but then another and get yet another Masterwork weapon dropped. So I turn in a couple more engrams right here and he gets armor dropped, which messes things up, but then we do get another Masterwork weapon. We turn in one more and get armor, but then another package and we get a Masterwork weapon. So that's 4 Masterworks right there in one session, which is actually very, very good in terms of drop rate, especially when you consider that you can get end of game drops in trials matches as well. So obviously right now, if you're hoarding tokens, then you're definitely going to want to go turn them in. But if you don't have some already, then you can spend some time on multiple characters in one particular weekend. So you can earn at least 150 tokens on 3 characters, and that's on top of multiple trials engrams themselves. And like I said, you can get, generic crucible weapon drops at the end of games when you're playing as well. But if we take a look at my friend Gorsty's account, he has even more tokens, but he gets about as lucky as Howie, and partially this is because he gets a lot of double armor drops. So we turn in the engram reward and he gets armor, but then we turn in 2 packages in a row right here and we get 2 Masterworks. My recommendation though is not to spam all of your tokens at once. I know it sounds a bit tinfoil, but it does seem that duplicates and poorer quality drops tend to happen if you turn in a whole bunch of stuff at once, so it's worth thinking about that. I actually load out of the social space, go to the tower and then come back, and the first thing you get is another Masterwork. So like I said, be wary of it. Obviously it's pretty difficult to quantify. Another thing to consider though for trials is that if you are able to get 7 wins without losing 3 games, or to actually get a flawless, then you will get 3 separate trials engrams which have just as high of a chance of being Masterworks. To reference some external sources, it's worth mentioning that I first heard about these drop rates via a Reddit post where a player claimed to have had 15 Masterworks from 30 trials engrams, and they did post a screenshot getting a double Masterwork drop. Another post did claim that they obtained 7 Masterworks from just 250 tokens, and and while I can't validate that this is actually true, there are multiple reports of this being the case. So I think in terms of how lucky you get, it totally comes down to the percentage of packages which result in a weapon drop. But of course we have to compare this to the raid for it to actually make any sense. So I played 4 full raids this week, 2 Eater of Worlds and then 2 Leviathans, and from that I received 2 Masterwork weapons. Of course you do have the added benefit of getting 330 drops from Callus right now, and this does make it more appealing, but you'll be relying purely on encounter drops to actually get Masterworks, because unlike Trials, when you turn in raid tokens, it doesn't appear to be possible to get Masterworks. I've spent 300 plus tokens and I've had friends who've done the same, and so far we've had 0 Masterwork drops, so I'm 99% sure that it's actually not possible. So while raids are a competitive way to get Masterworks, it seems that Trials, between the in-game drops themselves, the 3 possible Trials engrams that you can get for wins on a card, and then turning in tokens at the Spire, is absolutely the fastest way to get Masterwork weapons if you're wanting to farm them. So the recap then, there are 4 encounters in the raid with a chance at Masterworks. You could get a weapon, at which point it looks like there's roughly a 50% chance at the weapon being a Masterwork. You could also get armor though, or no drops at all, and considering it's pretty common to receive no drop from an encounter in the raid and to just get tokens, I'd say that there is very roughly, this is an estimate, 30% chance of you getting a weapon in an encounter, and then you have that 50-50 chance of a Masterwork. Obviously, if you complete challenge modes in the raid, then you're going to get an additional drop, so that'll help. But versus the raid, every time you turn in Trials engrams, you are guaranteed to actually get something dropped, which doesn't happen in the raid. If it's a weapon, again, my experience so far is that it's roughly 50-50. The difference with Trials, though, is that you have end of match drops, 3 possible Trials engrams per character, and all of these have a very good chance of a Masterwork weapon, and then the tokens that you turn in, which can actually drop Masterworks. So for me, Trials is the most effective way to farm Masterwork weapons. Of course, as I mentioned, whether you want to play Trials or the raid or how effective those will be for you depend on you really, but if you can run these kind of activities, then you will have the best chance at Masterworks. It's simple. So those are my findings so far, guys. I'm pretty surprised at how good the drop rate is in Trials. Let's also remember there are 4 new weapons available in Trials for Season 2, so if you haven't played, now may be the time to jump in. If you want to check out a video on those new weapons, then I will link it in the description below, or you can play it from the end screen coming up. Let me know how you've got on picking up Masterworks though, guys. I hope this information has been useful. If it has, a like below is very much appreciated. If you're new to the channel, be sure to hit subscribe to see more Destiny 2 content. But for now, have an awesome day.